One of the coolest things about fountain pens is just how wide the range of options is. You can pick one up for as little as $6 or spend over $10,000 on a single pen. So today we're gonna be breaking down the most popular fountain pens based on real sales data from Goulet pens over the past year at each price point. If you're buying with a budget in mind, you don't just want any pen at your price point, you want the best pen that you can get. Now, in the 2023 version of this video that we did, we chose the top pens by individual colors within the models, but I thought it might be interesting to compile all the colors of each pen model together to see who comes out on top. Now, I'm gonna start off with the most affordable and work my way up to the Grail pens. So let's go ahead and dive right in. Over the past 12 months or so, we've seen, some price increases, some supply challenges, and now adding tariffs that are making things kind of uncertain and complicated. We're at a pretty unusual moment in the pen industry, and I have no idea how things will look in the future. So if you're watching this literally any time after this video was posted, the specific prices of these pens, or even the categories they fall into, could change pretty drastically. First category, under $10. Now we're starting off this adventure in the less than $10 range. The Jinhao Shark pen is the champ of the cheap. At just $4.95, this pen was up against popular entry-level pens like the Platinum Preppy and the Pilot Varsity. So why did the Shark pen win out? Well, it definitely wins on flair. It looks like a shark after all. And it also comes with a converter, which is super convenient. And while it's not like the greatest converter in the world, it gets the job done, and you wouldn't expect that normally on a pen this affordable. Now, we've carried previous versions of this pen where they were hooded nibs with an extra fine tipping, but we've been trying out the number 5 size conventional nib in medium, which I think has been going over well. $5, converter, Shark. Okay, the most popular version of the Shark now, that would be matte blue, just in case you were curious. $10 to $25 range. Now, this has been the most disrupted price range, as there are some good go-to pens that ended up moving out of this range since the last time we did this video. But that's allowed the Pilot Kakuno to rise as the front runner now. It's definitely more of a kind of a fun, quirky pen, especially with the different faces that you can see on the nibs. They've refreshed the line with some new colors, which I think have gone over pretty nicely. Now, they're a really affordable way to get to experience Pilot's awesome steel nibs, the same one that you get on more expensive Pilot pens. And the most popular color? I guess technically there isn't one because the most popular color was clear. Is clear a color? I don't know, let me know in the comments. Now, an honorable mention here goes to the Pilot Explorer, which didn't make the cut by 1 cent, since it's exactly $25 and it was under 25. Otherwise, that would have gotten the crown here, as it did technically outsell the Kakuno, but we have to draw the line somewhere. So at least it stays in the family, right, Pilot? $25 to $50. Now, this range is arguably the most competitive, as you really get into like heavyweight pens that are most popular, especially for people starting out. But the crown is gonna go to Lamy, specifically the Lamy Safari. Now, they've been releasing special editions like they're going out of style, taking some bigger swings on new colors, and honestly, some of those, like the Summer Safaris and the multicolor ring Safaris, haven't actually been out that long at all, but still, Lamy gets that top spot. The number 1 Safari color, now granted, not all of them have been out for the same amount of time, but still, we're just looking at a snapshot of last year, the number 1 color has actually been steel black. Now, this has barely edged out the long-standing number 1 Safari in charcoal, so I'm curious to see how that keeps up over time. Now, I have to give an honorable mention here, another one, to the Lamy All-Star. The different versions of the All-Star end up spanning across this range and the next one up. And had they all been together in the same range, they actually would have edged out the Lamy Safari. But we're gonna stick to the ranges that we chose. I just thought it was worth mentioning. $50 to $100. I could tell you that this price range is maybe even more competitive than the one below it. You've got some strong models from Lamy, TWSBI, Monteverde, Conklin, and it gets a little weird here because you get pens like the 580, 580AL, 580ALR. Do we roll those up and count them as one model or not? Even after massaging the numbers and looking at it in different ways, trying to add them up together, there was still one clear standout above all the others, and that is actually the TWSBI Eco. Now, normally Ecos are known for being on the more affordable end, under $50, and those versions stand quite well on their own. But the more premium versions of the Ecos that TWSBI's been releasing lately have been grand slams, and you all have agreed by voting with your dollars. Now, this model has been a long-standing personal favorite of mine. I have a ton of them and use them all the time. Not even necessarily because of how they look, though that's a part of it, but they're just really reliable writers. The cap seal's great, and you get a huge ink capacity. And the top selling eco color in this range, well, they've done so many good ones, but the top one is gonna be the Irish Green with Onyx trim. Now, it's launched almost exactly a year ago, so maybe it had a slight heads up on some of these other colors, but still, it's a sweet looking ink stick. Now, just like with the All-Star, the Eco also spanned across the $25 and $50 range, and then in this $50 to $100 range. But they're already getting some love here, so we'll just leave it at that. Bottom line, Ecos are popular, $100 to $250 range. Okay, now we have a wider price range, which means a wider variety of pen materials and features that you're gonna find here. Now, this is where gold nib pens get into the mix, which can totally make or break the writing experience for many pen users. Gold nibs are generally more desirable, but gold has gotten kind of bonkers expensive recently, so what you end up seeing here is usually simpler pens with gold nibs or some really wild pens with steel nibs. In this range though, steel or gold, you're pretty much gonna have a good writing experience either way. So what makes a pen really great in this range is more of the wow factors and unique aspects of the design and materials. Now, this one was pretty neck and neck, but what pulled ahead was the Benu Euphoria. And it's perhaps not very surprising because they have so many incredible colors that you don't find in any other brand. We've also developed a whole slew of exclusives with them, and most of them have continued to sell well enough that we've just kept making more, so they have all sort of added up together over time. You know, the Euphoria is a larger pen, but it's not super heavy, which makes it really comfortable for writing, especially for long sessions. And with so many fun themed colors, I think these are popular for collecting as much as writing. Now, there are a bunch of strong colors, but the top Euphoria was our beloved exclusive Earl Grey, which is amazing since we launched it in December 2023, so it's really not that new at this point. Now, I have to give another honorable mention here to the Pilot Vanishing Point. Strictly by the numbers, they didn't outsell the Euphoria in this category. However, we did have our own exclusive Vanishing Point, which was above this price range, and if you added them to the other VPs, then they would have outsold the Euphoria. But that was also a one-shot thing, so I guess we'll be hardlined here, just as we were in lower ranges, and we're gonna stick to the categories, but it was definitely worth mentioning. It's a very popular pen. $250 to $500. So if you peek inside the $250 to $500 bucket, you're gonna see that this is where it's full of rock solid pens. But one model has a fairly solid lead, and that's Pilot with the Custom 823. This pen's been around for years, and while the clear one is a relatively newer addition, there's still only 3 colors, clear, smoke, and amber. This pen has really always been pretty popular, but in the last several years, it's really started to climb and it's stayed strong just because it's such a great writer. It's a vacuum filler, Pilot's only vacuum filler in their whole lineup, which gives an immense ink capacity. And it also has this delicious 14 karat gold nib going for it with some bounce to it. Feels great. The nib is large compared to a lot of other Pilots, but it's not quite into the oversized zone. It's comparable to about a number 6 size nib from other brands, but it's large enough to really showcase this beautiful imprint on the nib face. And you know that being a Pilot, excellent writing consistency is gonna be a foregone conclusion. Now, there were no special editions here, nothing to really spike the sales. It's just a pen that sells well purely on a hard-earned reputation for being a great pen. Now, of the 3 colors, which would you think that sells the best? It's been fun because we look at these numbers every month here as a company, and the amber and smoke have sort of leapfrogged each other month to month, but in the end, the amber is the one that ended up actually getting a pretty solid lead. It started out as the only color, it's the OG, And by golly, it still holds up. Now, I've already had caveats and honorable mentions all along the way here, so why stop now? I have to give some love to Sailor with their Pro Gear Slim. Now, this one again has straddled the cutoff between the different ranges with different versions of the pen varying at different price points, with many of the newer releases falling into this range rather than the sub $250 range. So if I added up the Pro Gear Slims across all prices, they would get a top spot somewhere, but it's really messy to try to factor all that in, hence the special mention here. And I think actually, literally as I was typing this script, I remembered why we didn't roll up all the colors together by model in 2023 for this exact reason, but we're already in it too deep. Let's just plow ahead, and I'll keep this in mind for maybe the next time if I want to do a list like this. $500 to $1,000. So as we are climbing up here to pens in this higher price range, now we're getting into the luxury pen zone. Here, gold nibs are going to be assumed as a given in any of these pens. We're now getting more into the artistic spectrum with unique materials, but also themes and some limited editions. Pens that are a bit more artisanal, and there's more labor involved, more craftsmanship. These are generally not going to be mass-produced pens. And speaking of rare materials, some of you may know where I'm going with this. How about a pen made out of volcanic rock? Yes, lava. The top-selling pen here, between $500 and $1,000, remains the Visconti Homo sapiens. It was not dethroned since 2023. It holds its place as one of the most revered grail pens. This pen is captivating, if nothing else. There's something about the design and the material of this pen that just draws people in, and there really is nothing else like it. That hook-safe lock cap, the power filler mechanism, the volcanic resin. A couple of years ago, Visconti actually changed their nibs. They've had several changes over the years, but they brought them in-house for the first time. And anytime these pens are mentioned online, you're gonna find somebody very quick to jump in and share their opinion about Visconti nibs. It's almost like a pastime for some folks. But I can legitimately say that they've been working really hard to make their in-house nibs consistent, and some of the criticism from years past, as they've been made several nib transitions, have largely been worked out. The 18 karat gold nib is stamped with a lovely design, and it has some slight bounce to it. This pen certainly has that it factor that continues to allure. Now for the top selling color Homo sapiens, much like how the OG Amber 823 remains the king, so it is with the Homo sapiens Bronze Age, the classic. It's my favorite, so I'm not too surprised. I think this is the Homo sapiens that probably everybody thinks of when they hear Visconti Homo sapiens. $1,000 to the moon! And here we are, folks. The final plateau in our climb to the top. The best-selling fountain pen that costs over $1,000. Now at this level, we're really beyond strict utility. We're well into luxury pens, perhaps looking for a deeper sense of meaning or significance connecting to the pen, and certainly you get into exclusivity and elite craftsmanship here. Now, in our 2023 video, the Namiki Emperor Urushi was the top spot, and they're still definitely well-loved pens, along with pretty much all Urushi lacquer pens across the board from the likes of Namiki, Pilot, Tachia, and Sailor. However, on New Year's Day in 2024, a massive earthquake hit Wajima, Japan, a central area for Urushi pen lacquer work, and the industry still hasn't recovered. It was Japan's deadliest earthquake since 2011, and it damaged nearly 200,000 structures in the area. It was really devastating. It's been a long road, and things are getting better, but it's gonna take a while for them to get there. Now I know we're still seeing capacity issues there since many of the rare materials and handmade tools that the artisans use, they've literally spent decades of their life acquiring and making them. They are now lost and they're having to basically start over. Now I know that's impacted availability of all Urushi pens, which ultimately impacts this list. My heart goes out to all of those artisans out there. And we're doing what we can, to support them, which is buy whatever pens they make so that they can continue to do the craftsmanship that they love and have devoted their lives to. Now, when we do have their pens coming through, we know that it's coming from an even deeper place of love and passion from these artisans after everything that they've been through. All right, so that was a bit heavy. Sorry, we'll get back to the fun stuff here. All that said, the pen that we have here that topped the list It might feel a bit familiar because we sort of just talked about it. Yes, it would be the Visconti Homo sapiens yet again. Now, I double checked all of our numbers, and legit, this was a top seller in both the $500, $1,000, and the $1,000 and up ranges, as they have a number of different pens that span across both those ranges. Now, what we're seeing in the $1,000 and up range is the really special stuff. Most pens in this price range are going to be beyond the ordinary. So you'll start to see materials and techniques used in these pens that are impossible to mass produce and often are either innovative or very difficult or labor intensive to create, hence their higher price. The Homo sapiens in this range had unique and special materials such as the Earth Origins with custom-made resins, the themed Lotus Garden limited edition, and the wild new full demo, which have all been very well received. But the one that topped all the others here was the Carbon Moire. Now, this was a limited edition with a really cool material made of forged carbon fragments and gold leaf layered and pressed in resin. I haven't seen anything like it, and they clearly made an impression because they're long gone. We don't have many more. Now, they've definitely made their mark, and I hope that we will see future LE Homo sapiens, maybe with a similar type of material in the future. That would be cool. If you would like to learn more about all these pens and many others that we offer, go check out gouletpens.com. Thank you so much for watching, and right on.